Imagine being a regular dad who suddenly finds himself judged and labeled by his community, all because of a few rumors or misunderstandings. Venugopal lives in his ancestral home in a small town with his wife, Anitha, and their 12-year-old daughter, Sri Lakshmi. His relationship with his wife is like every other married couple with silly fights over nothing, but they are also quick to make up. Despite not having completed her education, Anitha has always strived for independence and keeps trying to get a job. On the other hand, Venugopal may be a stubborn husband, but he is a doting father to his daughter, lovingly called Ummi. Ummi loves her life and both her parents but prefers her father over her mother. One day, seeing how lovingly Venugopal saw Ummi off to school, her friend sadly comments on how her own father never even smiles when he looks at her. That night, Ummi insists on sleeping with her parents. Despite Anitha's refusals, Venugopal lets his daughter do what she wants. Seeing them happy, Anitha eventually gives in as well. Just when life seemed content and satisfactory for this family, things began to slowly go bad. While at work one day, Venugopal receives a call from Ummi's school saying that she had a fever and that he needed to take her home. He is also told that the school was unable to reach Anitha at home, which is why they had ended up calling him. When he repeatedly tries calling Anitha, he isn't able to get through either. He rushes to Ummi's school and is relieved to see that she was fine. He thanks the doctor and the two head home. Since Anitha had not informed him of being out for the day, Venugopal is shocked to see that the house was locked. He calls out her name to see if she was around and even tries calling her phone, but is not able to reach her. A while later, Anitha gets home and sees that the lock to the house is broken, and she recognizes Venugopal's shoes outside. She tells her friend, Suma, who had accompanied her, to leave since she thought it would be better to face her husband on her own. Once inside, she sees that Venugopal was tending to a sick Ummi. When she tries asking what was wrong with her, Venugopal angrily asks Anitha where she had been. She replies that she was helping at Suma's boutique as it was opening the next day. She also says that she was unable to call him from someone else's phone because she couldn't recall his number. The next morning, Venugopal wakes up to see that Anitha was getting ready to go somewhere. When he asks her not to, she says that since Ummi was doing better and he had also taken a leave, she would like to attend the inauguration of Suma's boutique. She tells him that even if she wasn't legally a partner in the business, Suma was willing to give her a good salary. After she leaves, despite Venugopal repeatedly asking her not to, it makes him a little happy to see that she had already taken care of his and Ummi's meals for the day. When Anitha returns home early that evening, she finds the house locked. She waits for a long time with no contact with Venugopal. Finally, giving up late at night, she calls Suma to come pick her up. She tells her that no matter how much anyone says that men and women are equal, the same rules don't apply to them. Anitha does not go back home the next day or even after a few more days. On the other hand, Venugopal's ego does not let him apologize to his wife first, and Anitha continues to work with Suma at her boutique. Eventually realizing that he couldn't care for Ummi the way her mother did, Venugopal shifts Ummi to the hostel of her school. On top of the ongoing fight, the husband and wife then quarrel over who would get Ummi during her holidays. As more time passed, Venugopal bought a new car and Anitha was able to buy a second-hand car for herself. At Ummi's school one day, the principal asks Venugopal and Anitha to speak to the school's counselor, Miss Lissy, before leaving with Ummi for the holidays. Venugopal loses his temper at Miss Lissy when she tries to talk to them about their issues and the effect they had on Ummi. Apologizing to Miss Lissy for her husband's behavior, Anitha follows him out and sees him off with Ummi. On their way home, Ummi quickly realizes that Anitha seems to have borrowed Suma's car for the day when she sees her on the road. After taking over Venugopal's car a couple of times for Ummi's happiness, Anitha later lets Venugopal take the lead. When she doesn't see her mother again for a while, Ummi grows worried and calls her. Both Ummi and Venugopal are shocked to know that Anitha had met with an accident and was admitted in the hospital. After ensuring that Anitha was fine and paying for her bills and medicines, Ummi and Venugopal go home, only to find that their power was off that night. While Ummi sleeps, the discomfort does not let Venugopal go to bed, and that is when he notices some blood on Ummi's blanket. Waking her up, he searches if Ummi had any cuts or bruises, but they both quickly realize that her flow must have begun. Not knowing what to do and whom else to call, Venugopal calls Anitha, and she speaks to Ummi to calm her down. She then guides Venugopal so Umi can be temporarily helped for the night. The next morning, Suma brings Anitha home. While Anitha grabs Ummi and heads inside, Suma tells Venugopal that since Ummi is a grown child now, he should just let Anitha be there for her. In the washroom, Anitha advises her daughter to focus on her studies so she can be independent later in life. In saying so, she hints at why she had been unable to complete her education. Seeing Suma off later, Anitha sounds defeated at having to sacrifice her dream of being independent for the sake of her daughter. While the family is back together again, it isn't the same as before anymore. For Umi, Venugopal and Anitha put up with each other, but neither seems too pleased. During a storm one night, Anitha wakes up to find Umi in their bed yet again. This time, she wakes her up and despite Umi's protests, insists that she sleep in her own bed. In an act of defiance, Venugopal follows Umi to her bed and keeps her company instead. A few weeks later, Umi asks to be excused to go to the washroom at school. Despite the pain she suddenly had, she goes back to her classroom without telling anyone anything. During her next class, on her way to the washroom for the 5th time that day, Umi faints and collapses on the floor. Upon examination, the school's doctor suggests that Umi be taken to a female doctor. After a while, the principal calls Umi's home and speaks to Anitha, assuring her that Umi was okay and that there weren't any issues with her academic record either. The principal requests that she reach the school as soon as she could. Meanwhile, Miss Lissy talks to Umi in an attempt to find out if there was anything that she was hiding or that she was scared about telling anyone. Already fearing the sudden strange treatment from her teachers and principal, Umi continues to say that she just needed to speak to her father. Anitha gets to Umi's school in a rush and meets the principal. After reassuring Anitha that everything was indeed fine with Umi's conduct and marks, the principal delegates another teacher to talk to her. A group of female teachers then fill her in about what had happened and take her to meet Umi, who was still talking to Miss Lissy. While Anitha looks devastated at the news, Umi is relieved to see her there. Still processing the information that Umi's teachers gave her, Anitha violently pushes her daughter away repeatedly and screams her disappointment at her as well. Miss Lissy takes Umi back inside while the other teachers hold Anitha back from causing Umi more harm. In a meeting with the school's manager and staff, the principal urges everyone not to jump to any conclusions given the situation. When she decides that Venugopal needed to be told of the incident as well, Miss Lissy requests her not to get in touch with him immediately. However, left alone in the school storeroom, Umi spots the telephone and dials her father's number. Just when he answers, a couple of teachers reach the storeroom and disconnect the call. Having heard Umi's voice, he calls the number back and Umi fights against her teachers to get to the phone but is unable to. Hearing Umi's struggle, Anitha rushes to her daughter and hugs her. When Umi tells her that she was trying to contact Venugopal, Anitha gets her phone out, only to have it taken away by Miss Lissy. After not getting a satisfactory answer from the school's principal when he directly calls her, a worried Venugopal decides to get to the school himself. Meanwhile, a couple of teachers accompany Anitha and Umi as they go to a hospital. The principal refuses to talk to Venugopal and instead gets Miss Lissy to break the news to him. A bunch of male teachers escort Venugopal to the storeroom where Miss Lissy informs him that his daughter was pregnant. The youngest teacher present there clicks a picture of Venugopal just as he attempts to process the information he had been told. Miss Lissy refuses to give Venugopal any other details, but asks him to wait for Anitha and Umi at home. Forcefully thrown out of the school, Venugopal meets his friend, Narayan, and gets him to contact Anitha. During that time, the teacher who had clicked Venugopal's photograph sends it to his contacts, spreading a terrible rumor. Since Anitha doesn't tell Narayan anything, he sends Venugopal home with a bunch of friends. There, a helpless Venugopal lets go of his emotions and says that while it rains in the forest, an elephant can do nothing but get wet and wait for the rain to stop. The next morning, Venugopal reaches the hospital, and while he sees Umi, he is still not allowed to speak to her. When he sees Anitha staring at him, he begs her not to think even for a while that he could have harmed their daughter. The police get involved in the scuffle that follows, and Venugopal is arrested. After speaking to Venugopal, the head inspector reaches the school and scolds the principal for not involving the police earlier. He further says that the police have their own methods of finding the culprit and that the school and its staff had no reason to judge and destroy the life of an innocent Venugopal. When he gets back to the police station, he meets Anita and kindly assures her that they will certainly find out who the real criminal is. Hearing this, Anita is relieved. After a few days, the young teacher who had spread the rumors through his network is seen confined in a dark place. A hooded figure that is revealed to be Venugopal informs him that his daughter finally confessed to him about the real culprit. He says that parents send their precious children to school, hoping that the teachers there also treat them lovingly and kindly. He says that teachers like this criminal are spoiling that hope for parents and disrespecting all other teachers as well, saying that his daughter believed that her father would bring her to justice. He sets fire to the teacher, ensuring that he can never harm anyone else.